All right, so yesterday I showed you this impressionist painting and I asked you to explain how the artist was able to create this depth and make it look as if it goes back into the distance, even though it's a two-dimensional or flat painting. And some of you had described how the height of the people gets smaller as it goes into the distance, the height of the building gets smaller as it goes in the distance. You also described how the details aren't as crisp in the background as they are in the foreground, how you can depict, how you can see these people's faces, yet these people in the distance are really kind of fuzzy and grainy. So good job at figuring out how the artist was able to do that. You also learned that the system of creating that distance and depth is called linear perspective, and we're going to learn a little bit more about that today and kind of practice it ourselves. So within this example, the artist is showing you again some of the vocabulary that you learned yesterday, where you have the horizon line. Remember that the horizon line, everything above it is the sky, everything below it is the ground. It's also your eye level. So if something is above your eye level, you're not going to see the top of it, as in this building. If something is below your eye level, you're going to see the top of it, as in the top of the rails of the railroad track here. So some things to kind of remember about the horizon line and vanishing point, and really what your perspective is from how you're seeing something. So let's practice that with a few basic shapes here on my piece of paper. So for today's lesson, you're going to need a straight edge, a ruler. You can use a side edge of a notebook, piece of cardboard from a notebook. You can use it if you have a ruler, great, but you're just going to need that pencil and paper again. And what I would like you to first do is take your ruler and divide your picture in half. Just kind of estimate, doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, this is going to be our horizon line, and in the middle of the paper, just to keep it easy, we're going to put our dot, which is our vanishing point. And our vanishing point, again, is where things get so small we're not able to see it anymore beyond that point. So we're going to just kind of create a couple basic shapes to show you how to create basic forms using linear perspective as well. It's a little more accurate than just the few little hacks that I showed you last week with your drawing basic forms. So I just have this little square that I'm going to show you what different perspectives you can see this box from, depending on where this box is in location to where the viewer is. The viewer being myself in this case. So if I put a box in the top, the perspective I should be able to see it from, because it is above my eye level, I should be able to look at the bottom of it because it's above my eye level. So I'm going to trace the square. I'm also going to trace the square on my horizon line to show you what that perspective might look like, as well as below it. As soon as I get this done. So I'm going to come over here and I'll put one below it as well. Just to show you what a curved object might look like too, I'm going to trace this circle here, do it below it. Okay, I'm going to get rid of the horizon line going through this box here, just so you don't see it as a transparent form, but rather the solid form. Okay, so once you have your boxes or your objects, and this could be any shape, I could draw a star if I wanted to as well to create linear perspective from as well. So maybe I'll put a quick star in and show you how that's done as well. All right, so when you have your horizon line and your vanishing point, the very next step in creating something that looks like it's drawn in linear perspective is by finding all of your corners. So I'm going to go in and find every corner that I can find. And corner, remember, is just whenever the outline of the shape kind of changes direction or creates an angle or bend. And I've found all of my corners. My star is going to have a lot of different corners, even the inverted corners as well. But when it comes to my circle, I don't have any corners, so we're going to have to figure out something different for that one when the time comes. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make all of my corners go to my vanishing point. So my vanishing point, again, where everything gets so small that I can't see it anymore. And if I want to make a solid form or solid figure, I'm going to not draw from the corners that would intersect the shape. So I'm just drawing from the corners that are going to have a clear path all the way to the vanishing point and won't have any obstacles in the way. So on this one, for example, if I connect this corner to my vanishing point, There's no obstacles in the way, no lines intersected except for when it intersects with the vanishing point and horizon line. So I can do the same thing on this one as well. Okay, now one thing I want you to understand is the vanishing point, it's like he's a really popular guy. Everybody wants to make it to his party at the vanishing point. There's no other place that these lines can converge but at this point or at this party. So please make sure that you're not, going down the street or going down here on the horizon line. But all lines will converge on the same spot, okay? Because again, this line would intersect this shape, I'm not going to draw it. Same thing with this one, it would intersect the shape, so I'm not going to draw it. So let me continue on to my next shape before we move on to the next step. So this one, again, no interruptions, no obstacles. It can directly connect to my vanishing point. Same thing with this one. And then same thing with this one. As you can see, this one is not going to make it because it's going to intersect my shape because I want to draw it as a solid form. The next one should have 3 points where it also goes to the vanishing point as well. And then of course that fourth corner won't make it because it's going to intersect the shape. So at this point, it kind of looks as if these shapes are exploding from the center point. Same thing with my star here, and I forgot a corner. Again, this one's going to make it, but a lot of my corners aren't going to make it because they're going to intersect with shapes. Or as soon as they hit this shape, I'm not going to be able to draw it. So as soon as it hits this corner of this star, I can't draw it any further. Same thing here. It's going to hit the corner of that star. I'm not going to draw it any further. These three would intersect the shape, so I can't draw those as well. But again, it kind of looks as if it's exploding from that center point. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to look at what the edge of the shape looks like. And here I have this kind of L shape. Here is right angle. Every time I get further and further back, you can see that line's going to get shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter the closer I get to that vanishing point. Same way as like the people in that one painting that I showed you get shorter and shorter and shorter as they go back into the distance. So if I take this line and I just simply recreate the direction of it, it's a perfectly vertical line. I'm going to scoot that back just a little further. This is how big I'd like to make the box or the cube. And I redraw that line between the two lines going back to the vanishing point. So I can see that this line and this line are perfectly parallel to one another. I also need to make another line going horizontally that's going to be perfectly parallel to this particular line. So if I take my ruler and line it up with that and then simply slide it back until it hits that corner of the last line that I just drew. Again, I see how this L shape matches this L shape here. From that point, I can get rid of my lines going back to my vanishing point. And I could have that solid figure. So from this perspective, you can see that it's above my eye level. So I will see the bottom of the box and also this left side of the box. And I won't see the top because it's above my eye level. This is called a worm's eye view because you can imagine a little worm crawling on the ground. And he's looking up and he's going to see the bottom of the box. Okay, so let's see what it looks like for this box down here. Again, I look at my two lines going back to my vanishing point, and I need to recreate parallel lines that go with it. So here, if I take my ruler and slide it up, if that's how big I'd like to make the box, you can see that this line is parallel to this line. Same thing with this vertical line here. I'm going to make this line parallel as well. I'm going to take that over, scoot it to that corner, and make a perfectly vertical line. These two are parallel. Get rid of my lines going back to my vanishing point. You can see that this right angle matches this right angle. If I had drawn it further back, it would have been even shorter. So what I'm going to do now is show you how the perspective looks here. Because this is my horizon line, it's below my horizon line or my eye level. I'm going to see the top of the box and also the left side of the box from where I'm positioned. This is called a bird's eye view because if you imagine a cute little bird up here in the sky and he's looking down, you're going to see the top of the box, so it's called a bird's eye view. If it's on the horizon line and it's on your eye level, you will not see the top nor the bottom of it. You're only going to see the side of it as it goes back in space. So in this case, it's probably the easiest of all the shapes. because all I have to do is match this vertical line that goes up and down and slide it back as big as I'd like to make it. Get rid of the horizon line that intersects it, as well as the lines going to the vanishing point. And then I simply have a box sitting on my horizon line or my eye level, again, not seeing the top nor the bottom. Okay, so same thing with my star, where it gets a little trickier. There's just more sides to draw. I look at the side of my shape and I recreate that line. It's not a horizontal line, it's not a vertical line, instead it appears to be a vertical line. I'm sorry, diagonal line. So I'm going to recreate that diagonal line by putting my ruler on the diagonal line, scooting it closer as it goes down to the vanishing point. Again, making that parallel line here, and you can see how the angle is going upwards this way. Same thing, I look at the side of the shape that I'm trying to draw, which is my star here. It's another diagonal line, but it's going the opposite way. So I'm going to put my ruler on that, slide it down till it hits that corner to make a nice parallel line, and you can see kind of the dimension of that star now once I get rid of those lines going back to the vanishing point. Same thing for these edges of my star. If I take this and go along with the edge of the shape that I'm trying to recreate, slide a little bit further back, I'll see that part of the star as well as this one too. So I'm going to slide that back, get rid of my line, and then I see the dimension of that star. Okay, the last form here is going to draw a circle. And like as I've shown you before, if I wanted to make this look dimensional, it looks like it's three-dimensional, I could add some shading to it to make it look like a sphere or a ball. But in this case, if I'm trying to make it look like a cylinder that's going back into the distance, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the tangent. So the tangent is the outermost edge of my circle, as far as where the lines converge from the vanishing point. So with my ruler here, if I have my ruler, and I slide it as if it's almost like a hand on a clock, and I ticks backwards in time until it hits the edge of my circle. As soon as it hits that edge of my circle is when I can go ahead and stop and draw my line. Same thing as my arrow, my ruler keeps ticking backwards around the clock in this case, and it hits the edge or the tangent of that circle, I can stop and then redraw that other circle. So you want to go to that very outermost edge from where that line radiates from that vanishing point. Unlike my other shapes or forms where I was able to just draw nice vertical, diagonal, or horizontal lines, in this case I have a different edge of the form. It has a curvature to it. So I'm going to have to kind of mimic that same curvature if I want to draw the back edge of that form. So right here, I'm going to look at how that line kind of converges with that line here and redraw that kind of parenthesis shape or curvature here. It goes to the background. I can also go ahead and get rid of my lines going back to my vanishing point, and now I have that cylinder as it goes back into the distance. So I can add some shading to it as well to make it look like it has more dimension and more curvature, as if light's hitting the surface of it and kind of curving around it. And what I'd like you to think about is how many different forms that you could create from these examples as well. So this might become a tire on a car, or maybe it's a roll of toilet paper. Everybody's in need of that now. This might become a house if I go ahead and construct a roof on top of it, or a building that I could add my windows to. So thinking about how these forms could become many different things using linear perspective. So try this out and see what you can come up with. Try some different types of shapes if you'd like, and I'd like to see what you can show me. Thanks.